Hey everybody, good evening. It's the Soul Report Live, and we're here to bring you some more exciting information. My co-host Les Hubert and I'm your host Douglas James Cottrell. We're here, and our backup in the back room is the Wizard of Oz, Jack, who's pulling all the levers and pressing the buttons to make this show come live to you tonight. We want to talk to you about a lot of things tonight. Very interesting stories, what's going on. Les has had some wonderful experiences in the last evening. Some really amazing stuff has happened to him. And tonight we're going to step back into the unknown. We're going to talk about that chilly place. And I'm not talking about South America, I'm talking about Antarctica. We're going to have a look at that. We're also going to look at Claude Monet, who is a very well known. However, he's passed into the history books, but his life and times are having an impression upon us today. Tonight, we step back, we look ahead, we look for the headlines tomorrow, today, and we're above and beyond the noise and into a place where insight is live and thrives. From everything you want to know to everything we can provide for you, we're here tonight on the Soul Report Live. So if this is your first time, welcome to the family. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe if you're watching or listening to this show tonight. It's broadcast live for you with the intent to lift your spirit and to send out waves of truth to you, my friends, in this time of chaos. Welcome to the show, Les. It's great to see you tonight. I trust you had a good week. Things are going well. Tell me, you had an exciting moment or experience in Cranston, I think, which is in Providence, Rhode Island, for our friends around the country. And we're
hmm
going to get to that in a minute. But I mean, did you go to sleep last night? It was so exciting, or, what you told me was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. We're going to start off tonight's show with our spiritual segment called Loneliness and Isolation in a Connected Age. Despite constant digital connectivity in today's modern world, many people feel morally and spiritually isolated and depressed. Today's culture shows that overstimulation and restlessness also actively work against the serenity and inner depth needed for spiritual reflection. Many would see this as boredom. Many are not even looking. Tons of data show that past generations did not have this problem. So, how do we get back to where we're supposed to be, being connected spiritually with ourselves and with each other, Doug?
Agricultural life. Hmm. As Laurel and Hardy used to say, hmm. So, the long and the short of it is, our mind has not gotten any bigger. It still lives inside of this cranium or human skull. And the thing is, we're supposed to be more evolved. And I think that our environment has accelerated. And instead of, taking time to talk to people, we're like, yeah, yeah, I'll get back to you. Oh, I got a text. Oh, look, I email. Oh, I've got to do this, and I've got to come to see that Soul Report live show on Mondays. Like, I gotta. So, the more I think you can put it something like this. I once handed my father, when I was in my early 20s, a calculator. It was super, it's kind of like ancient history. I know it's like rocks we're talking about, but back in the day, I had him a calculator. It was battery operated, and you could press buttons, and it could do all the arithmetic, but it also could do other things,
Hmm.
logarithms, square root, whatever, nothing fancy. And I handed it to him because he was a businessman and he used to do his arithmetic in his, long form on a pad and in his mind. And he didn't want anything to do with it. No, no, I don't want that. I was like, what? This cost me $10 or whatever it was at the time. No, I didn't want any part. I said, look, you can press the buttons and add things up. Don't make, no, no, I don't want any part of it. What he didn't want to do was to learn about this mechanical, mysterious device that somehow you could press buttons and it would keep on adding up like an old, the ending machine used to put the buttons in and pull a lever.
Hmm.
I know that's for people. What? Pull levers? Press buttons? What's that all about? So I don't mean to date ourselves or myself, but back in the day, that was considered nouveau technology. Anyway, so from that always stuck with me. And I found, but Dad, it's going to be labor saving and help you. Human nature hasn't changed much. When somebody comes to me and they say, "Hey, Bitcoin this and Bitcoin that," and oh, get this app, and oh, by the way, you can do this other thing. It cleans up your phone for your duplications of your videos and whatever. And here's another app. It'll tell you
Yeah.
it'll tell you how many subscriptions you're paying for to how many apps that you never use or don't know anything about.
Mm.
So that analogy of my father not wanting to embrace new technology that was beyond what he would consider reasonable falls into my lap now, and I think for a lot of people. I mean, the idea is that do you meditate, my friends? No,
Mm.
you're always on the go, something to do. You know, creation said that God rested on the Sabbath, the seventh day. That doesn't mean that God took time out and was, down at the beach, wherever that is in the atmosphere, in the galaxies. It meant that you have to clear your mind. You have to distract yourself. Otherwise, your mind continues to cannibalize itself.
Mm.
You're constantly absorbing thoughts. And so while you're sitting in front of a computer and while your mind's racing at warp speed, you are becoming exhausted. And then you're becoming depressed because the oxygen in your body is being gobbled up. The hemoglobin is getting less and less. You're feeling tired. And so then you fall into that point of, gee, I'm having naps more often. Yeah,
Right.
we get that. You get past 50, 60. When you get around 65, 75, naps are a good thing.
Yeah.
However, younger people are exhausted. And so
Mm.
the answer to the question is, as I was humorously saying, an agricultural life, it means getting back to nature, hugging a tree. By the way, there's this new stuff about magnets and copper wire, and apparently they can measure that electricity comes from a tree. And I've
Mhm.
seen an aura around a tree. It's beautiful. It's like about that thick. It's all around the leaves and the tree because the tree's a living entity or living force. So when you go and you hug it, you're actually getting some of this electrical charge. I know it's out there. People are talking about magnets and copper wire wrapped around a stick, and you stick it in the ground and it energizes the ground. It really works. I've
It
tried
does.
it.
Yeah.
It does. So talk to somebody about that, and they go like, "I don't think so. I don't think so. I still, I like to peel my potatoes. I don't like to get them in a package, that kind of stuff." So as we go through this time, I hope I'm getting to the point, which is that when you're when you're in a crowd and you feel all alone, that's how people are living in today's warp speed life. Remember,
Mhm.
I say you live your life outside the house. You spend your life inside the house. So you're supposed to be outside the house. You're not supposed to come into the house at any time other than when the weather's so bad that you have to.
Right. Right.
That's how it used to be. So to answer your question, the point is that do you take time out, my friends? Drop us a note in the chat and tell us about how you try to relax. If you do, I'll bet you most people don't. You're on the go all the time. And as you do that, you become susceptible by information overload, just like my dad with the calculator. And I quite frankly, when somebody comes along and said, "Hey, Douglas, look, Chat GPT. Hey, there's AI. Hey, there's this. Hey, there's that." I go, "Oh, hold it. I've had enough. Douglas, you can get an app and you can get somebody who's going to give you investment and you can put money in and it makes money all by itself."
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
believe that. I hope it's true. Good luck, but apparently there are such things. You put money in and it makes pennies on the dollar or something. I don't know. But the idea is getting back to the point. How many times have you found yourself in a crowd, my friends, and you've had bad news, or perhaps you've just been let go from a job, or you know you got dumped, right? Or there's been a death, your spouse has passed away, some tragic thing has happened to your family or your friends, or something you never expected happened to you. Oh my God, whatever that was. You're alone. Where are you alone? in your head. You're surrounded by people, but you're oblivious. They're oblivious to you, I should say. And you're alone. And you have this world of thoughts, depressing, disabling, feeling lonely and isolated. Well, that can go on for days and days and days. And sometimes people who are in a family, especially a wife or somebody taking care of the family, taking care of the adult kids, taking care of the grandkids and the kids in the same house, they're a ghost in a house.
Mm.
They're into depression, demonic depression, some form of depression. They're living, walking zombies, if you will. And so, how is that possible when all you've got to do is press on an app, pick up the phone, turn on the computer, get an iPad? Well, first of all, you have to be understanding how that all works. And everybody's paranoid about the scammers. They're going to get my information and they're going to get my email and wipe out my bank account, which happens. It happens because there are really nasty people out there. So again, another layer of isolation. What it comes down to is this. Do you have a friend? I mean, somebody you can just go and hang out with. You don't have to rush off somewhere. You don't have to say, okay, I've got 15 minutes. Or I got home by, 1:45. You can say, what's new? Nice dress. Yeah. What do you think about those clouds? How many times have you looked up and said, what the heck is going? Look at that dragon going through the cloud out there. Oh my gosh. No, instead we're talking about the cloud that's in this thing, the computer. And I'm making a prediction. I've made it before. The cloud is going to lock up one day. It's going to lock up, and everything you have on the cloud. Watch out, Eric Trump, or whatever his last name is. I understand he's a stepson. Whatever's going to happen when you have everything in the cloud, it's going to be lost. And he's big into crypto. That's where that remark comes from. Eric's not 98% of his business in the crypto, I'm told, or a report said. God bless him. I hope he makes a gazillion dollars, which apparently is. So long and the short of it is, be prepared, make friends. We've talked about this before. The pathway between two friends, if it's not well traveled, grows up with weeds in it. And
No.
how many times last time, I bet you can count on one hand as well as I could, the people used to be really close to and you hardly ever talk to them again. They went their way, you went your way. And for whatever, that's how life is. And then you say, whatever happened to, as we were talking about before the show, somebody we used to know from 20 years ago? 20 years, that's a long time. Looking forward, yes. Looking back, it's yesterday. So if you're out there, my friends, let us know. How are you dealing with your sanity? Do you meditate for 20 minutes a day? You don't have to be hours, just small times, 20 minutes a day. Do you go to a movie? Do you walk in the park? Do you go watch the little kids playing soccer in the field? The teeny tiny guys, 5 years old. They're like, the herd instinct chasing that ball. It is so funny to watch that. Do you watch birds flying through the air? Do you watch, you ever wonder, look at a bumblebee going from plant to plant and say, I never saw these bees in the backyard, but look how many there are, my gosh. And they don't stop. They tend to hit every flower. Are you curious? I guess is the point. Are you curious about life? Or are you fed up with it already? Are you in debt? Way in debt, because debt is the most, well, it's modern day slavery.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They say most people in the country are in debt, terribly in debt.
Right. So how to get out of debt? There are ways and means. Number one is don't cut up those credit cards. I'm not going to tell you that silly stuff. I'm going to say put them out of your reach, and then try to say to yourself, do I really need that pair of running shoes, sports jacket, fancy t-shirt, 75? No, I don't. And that's one of the things that wealthy people ask themselves all the time. Do I
Yeah.
need it or do I want it?
Right.
And
Yeah.
if they want it, that means it's a negative cash flow because they're going to buy it, take it home, and put it in the closet, never look at it again. If it's something they need, they're going to put it on and use it because it's necessary. So whether it's another car, or another house, or a hat, you have to ask yourself on the way to wealth, do I need it or do I want it? can I do without it?
Hmm.
How much money do I have? How much money do I have in savings? Okay, savings are like your 911 health kit in the future. The savings are going to give you a comfortable life when you're my age. If you don't have any savings, you're going to be working when you're 70 or 75 for minimum wage. So all these things are doing what? They're collecting you. They're giving you a critical mass. To answer the question, Les, can you be alone in a crowd? Yes. Can you be alone in your thoughts and in your heart when you're feeling sad? Yes, it's part of human nature.
Hmm.
So how do you get yourself out of it? You are responsible for your own happiness, my friends. No
True.
one else. And if you don't believe that, you're going to find out the hard way when you're alone in a crowd. Sooner or later, all your friends will be gone by way of moving away, by natural causes, by other means. Sometimes, believe it or not, this never happens to me. Ha ha ha. I have people who used to be my friends that aren't anymore. What a shocker that is. What did I do? Well, they had enough of me. There was like, adios, amigo. And I go, what? Okay, I'm being funny. But the point is that you have to learn how to live with yourself, to be a friend to yourself,
Right.
to love yourself. And then you won't be alone because you'll be able to deal with people. And most importantly, you won't be a people pleaser. You'll be able to say no. You'll do what you want to, not do things out of obligation because somebody else has imposed upon you.
Hmm.
And as you have that integrity, you are taking your life back.
Hmm. It's there was was reading an article by this. He's called a happiness professor. His professor Arthur C. Brooks out of Harvard. He also writes for the Atlantic, and he claims that he said people are they're so afraid of being bored, so they're constantly being distracted. They're going to the. I do it myself sometimes. If I have 5 minutes, I'll go to my phone, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I
Can't
remember years ago when I first started, you mentioned, thank you for mentioning meditation, because my mother got us into it because she suffered from chemical depression and it cured her depression. Meditation cured her. And then I said, wow, if it can help my mom, it can help me. So we got into it. And, we're going to be talking later on about this artist, Claude Monet, very world famous artist. There was another artist, I don't know if you're familiar with him. His name is John Harris. He's a prolific science fiction illustrator. He did many, many, many paperback books. And his stuff, when you look at his stuff, Doug, you would swear that this man had visited these places. And when they asked him, how can you paint so prolifically? He said, I meditate. And he said, I learned to do this he said, I would see these things as if I were there. He said, so I could then put them on canvas. And when you look at his stuff, you go, wow. And the Harvard professor, Arthur C. Brooks, he says, when we do meditate and we have these moments of just stillness, he said, it unlocks a great amount of creativity and it activates a powerful brain network that might be a protection against depression. This is the Harvard professor. So they're even admitting it at Harvard now. This is actually working. And you mentioned agriculture. So, I have a lot of clients they're getting now into farming. They're actually converting their backyards into growing vegetables. And I asked them, how you doing? They said, we love it. It's like calming, it's soothing, it grounds us, and we're growing stuff, and we're actually eating the stuff we grow. So I guess there are ways to get back that we don't really think of today.
Well, my comment about agriculture, when you immerse your hands in the soil, my mentor Ross Peterson said that my wife ought to do that because she would get what would be a healing. And now with the grounding accepted, the theory about grounding being good for you, walking around without shoes
Hmm?
on the ground is really healthy for you. Walking around with shoes all the time is not healthy for you. Okay, so get over it. Walk out on the grass. And when people you get on the grass or down by the seashore, what's the first thing you do? You bend your toes and you kind of massage the soles of your feet. That's how you avoid plantar fasciitis. Oh, that's a great evil for anybody who's ever had it. They know what I'm talking about, and
Oh,
for those
yeah.
people who haven't, they haven't got a clue. But someday you will. However, plantar fasciitis, put that on the no-no list, avoid at all costs, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Oh yeah.
getting back to meditation, we know chemical changes occur in your body when you meditate. Okay, when you meditate, when your conscious mind, they call it the monkey mind, is all over the place. It's like making a fist.
Oh.
You know what happens when you make a fist? The circulation in your hand goes away.
Ah.
And what happens after a while? Your hand gets numb, it gets tingly, and then when you pry it open, because you have to, it hurts. That's the same for your entire body.
Oh.
Your entire body is in knots. People say, oh, my stomach's in knots. Oh, my back's in knots. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's true because when your muscles tighten up and you don't even know it, remember the arteries go through the muscles. Les knows that he's a master at his trade in massage and masseuse, and that cuts the circulation off. And when you cut off the circulation, it's like, hey, look, he hit his head and he's bleeding from the head. Quick, get the tourniquet, put it around his neck. Stops the bleeding,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it kills you. So the long and the short of it is that chemical changes occur when you meditate. Getting back to an artist who's painting futuristic views like the ones behind me or you, Les, these are people when he says, I meditate and I feel like I've been there. Well, you were. We call that soul travel. We call
Ah.
that remote viewing. We call that mind projection. Those are all terms that when you first hear them, you go like, well, mind projection, what does that mean? My mind's in my head. No, it's not. Your brain is in your head. Your mind is all around your consciousness. However, you can transport yourself like in a dream. And people who paint futuristic views, I'm convinced, even though they might not agree, that they are touching upon the soul energy. They
Mhm.
are casting their thoughts, their mind, their vision beyond the present moment. And they're seeing amazing things. And as they do, wow, they write them down, they sketch them out really fast so they don't forget, and they dream about things and they create it. And of course, as your mind, which goes out at random access, starts to be focused into a direct focus or direct access, you're going to keep going back to those pleasant places, those planes and dimensions above us.
Mm.
That's why to learn about soul travel, mind projection, remote viewing, astral traveling, all those names are referring to what? Not your physical body's going anywhere. It's stuck. It's dense. It sits on a chair or lays on the floor or walks. You're stuck. You walk on the ground. But your mind, in a moment, as you train yourself, my friends, you can zoom out,
Mm.
grab some information, and come back in not warp speed, but something that's much faster and go much further. The speed of thought. But the monkey mind has to be controlled. It has to be, instead of random access, it has to be brought down going to sleep almost. And then that other mind that's much more powerful, we call that the elephant mind, is
Oh.
able to go straight and steady without distractions.
Oh.
And so, as such, you pick up information. Your mom found that it calmed her down because
Oh yeah.
she was having a chemical difficulty when she was meditating. Guess what? The thyroid wasn't all uptight, the pancreas wasn't tight, the liver and the other organs in the endocrine system were balancing and secreting hormones, and chemically you're balanced again. That's why the sound of om or vowel sounds or musical sounds or tuning forks or those singing bowls are all important because they're putting a vibration out, and your body is like a tuning fork. It's a receptive thing. It starts to vibrate at that frequency.
Hmm.
And as such, you kind of go like, wow, that feels good. Where'd that come from? Well, the frequencies that are going through our body all the time these days from the internet,
Mm.
how many satellites do we have beaming down at us now?
Yeah.
Just a minute. I used to make fun of people who would put on those, tinfoil hats,
Oh, yeah.
it might be time to try it out.
Little pointy ones.
Absolutely. Get the little antennas on, and you'll pick up some of that battery energy from the earth. But anyway,
Well, that's interesting because it's. I remember reading an article by. It was a statement that I think the great person whose name was Yogananda. He mentioned something about. They asked him. They said, what's the best way to meditate?" And he said, "If you notice, whatever you're doing, when you really love something, time becomes irrelevant. It just like flies." He said, "That's a natural form of meditation.
mhm.
You just get lost in what you're doing." I never realized that. I thought meditation had to always be a verbal sounding mantra, but obviously not.
I disagree, and I have lots of respect for our friends in faraway places who believe sitting with your legs crossed, with making little symbols with your hands, and saying Om, 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 while your back is killing you. Remember a couple of
Right.
minutes ago, we said the origin of the term Om came from oh, ow, ooh, ow.
Right.
Remember?
Very true. Yeah, I used to hate meditation class.
Exactly. That's not meditation, that's vegetation because you're stuck in the physical. I mean, teachers, God bless them, are attempting to teach you to overcome the physical pain, the carnal influences, the desires of the flesh. Well, when I get hungry, I gotta have a hot dog. I'm sorry. I don't eat hot dogs much. But anyway, the long and the short of that is the answer is when you're in what I call the ever present moment, it's the same thing. Now, spiritual teachers will always teach you the basic, fundamental, spiritual, practical aspects of your spiritual being and the practical disciplines, if you will, or they'll be able to tell you and demonstrate and inform you and teach you something like that in the spiritual world. That's a true master, true teacher, rabbi,
Uh-huh.
if you will. So, what is he saying? Well, when you're having fun and time goes by real fast, you are in that ever present moment. It's kind of like, you're driving along and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, how did I get here?
Mm,
Just driven 10 blocks and you don't remember.
yeah.
Oh God. Well, that's where you find out about this thing called the subconscious mind
Mm.
or the super subconscious mind, because it's in total control of the vehicle while your mind's out lollygagging on in the universe or having a romantic interlude with somebody or remembering some wonderful place where you had a nice meal or where you're going, something, something, something. But it's like walking down the beach and you look back over your shoulder and you realize you've been walking for 5 or 10 minutes and you have no comprehension of taking those steps. You look back, there's the footsteps in the sand as far as you can see. And how did that happen? You're in what is open eyed meditation, you're in conscious meditation, you are allowing your mind to go into an alpha state or other brainwave down lower while you're walking along. And did you know, you probably heard this before because you're so wise last, back in the day when the samurai soldiers used to go to battle, they would walk all night in a state of, I'm going to use this word, hypnosis, which is
Mm.
another word for mesmerism, which is another word for meditation.
Oh,
And as they were walking along at night, they were sound asleep.
wow.
So the next morning, when they arrived at the battlefield, they woke up ready for battle. They were rested, even
Wow.
though they had been walking all night long. Those are true stories, and you go back and
Wow.
you talk to the teachers who talk about, samurai and ancient warfare. They'll tell you about this ability. So, metaphysically speaking, and the understanding of meditation is not what you're told it is, it's what you naturally do. Like
Mm.
when you just sit there at the computer, you're maybe going to play some, sneak on a game of solitaire or something, and all of a sudden a thought comes in your head, and it's the answer
Mm.
to the question or concern you have. You've been in a meditative state, a state of alpha, a state of altered consciousness, altered consciousness,
Mm.
somewhere away from the monkey mind, somewhere closer to the elephant mind, but in control. And you'll feel good about it. You'll say, I mean, there are geniuses that sit there and they create things all day long. How do they do that? Well,
Mm.
their conscious mind is on this side, pressing the buttons using the mouse, and their other mind, almost like their ambidextrous, is out visiting realms far and near. And they don't know the way. I mean, there's no maps in the spiritual world, by the way, my friends. If anybody says to you, talk about your blueprint in life and stuff, anybody says to you, yeah, there's a map, you can find your way to the higher realms, to the tree of life, to the astral planes, to, the Akashic records or the Akashic field is now popularized. They're not telling you the truth because there is no path.
Uh,
How does last
wow.
this could be a riddle. Okay, everybody, do you believe you have thoughts? Oh yeah, I have thoughts all the time. All right, tell me this. Where did they come from? And where did they go? And when you have a bunch of thoughts together, you have a train of thoughts. How did that happen? George Carlin, right? Good friend of mine when I was at his house. So the point is like we don't understand even how we think. We just know we think. We know we have thoughts because they change so fast. But can you slow down? Can you have one thought at a time? Matter
Mm.
of fact, that's the only time you can have a thought is one at a time.
Hmm.
Think about that, how profound that is. And you heard
Hmm.
it first here on the Soul Report.
So I got a quick question for you. So why is it when they say you have a problem, sleep on it, and lo and behold, you wake up and you go, "Eureka! I've got the answer." How does that happen?
Hey, as the Godfather would say, hey, give me a minute. I want to tell you something, Sonny. Well, when you go to sleep, what are you doing? You're changing your mind. You're washing your mind. You're putting your mind at rest. In other words, all the worries and the distractions in the monkey mind. I mean, there are people who teach how to meditate that you cleanse the mind, you silence the mind, you calm the mind. And that's it. That's their big lesson. It's just to
Hmm.
calm yourself down so you're not distressed,
Oh.
distracted, running amok. Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good place to start.
Hmm.
It's not the end of it all. But so when you go to sleep and you think, oh, what happens? Well, when you sleep and you dream, at least 4 dreams every night, mostly you don't remember them, like one or two or maybe more. What happens? Well, out here behind me is where all thoughts live.
Oh.
It's called the Akashic field or the Akashic record or the library. And what happens is when you have, let's say, you have a problem where you need to bake a cake and you've never done it before, or you want to create a new kind of cake, a
Hmm.
different cake, a special cake, and you rack your mind, you say, how can I? Well, you go to sleep and next morning you wake up and you say, raisins, raisins in cake? Why didn't I think of that before? That's a great idea. And what you've done is you went out here to right over here, I think, somewhere there's a little place where all the bakers who passed on, they're kind of hanging out there in the baker's realm. And so you find your way to this place where all the bakers are and you say, hey, I don't know how to make a cake that well. My cakes usually lean over a little bit or they're kind of, but I want to have something special for my friend. And so you're giving up, got a big baking soda, a little sugar, a little honey in it, and some special raisins. Put the raisins in a bowl, let them, I'm going to say marinate, but let them suck up a bowl of water and get nice and plump. And then you put them in at the last minute and you stir them up and put them in the stove in the oven so that they at the last minute they're nice and moist. They don't explode or bake or whatever. And you come back and say, oh, why didn't think of that before? Oh my God. And I know everybody's saying, Douglas, do you make cakes? No, I don't, but I'm just tuning in to wherever those bakers are. And those images I just told you were coming to my mind one after the other. That's a form of meditation, but that's the way it works. Even if you have a problem with your car, the thing is, there's no roadmap. There's no doors that you go and knock on, and there's no people standing there, with signs this way to the dream fix your car place. You go there because you have an issue. You're focusing your mind, and you're going to that place where that knowledge exists. Now, I'm kind of making fun when I say all the bakers live in one place. The motorcycle enthusiasts live in another, and the guys with the black jacket motorcycles, they live in another, maybe in the basement. I don't know, but these guys, they live in different. This consciousness lives in different places. It exists, I should say. It always did. When somebody comes up with an invention, they didn't invent it. It already existed somewhere. They just figured it out. They just saw it. But the invention was already there.
Hmm.
Before somebody invented electricity, right?
Right.
Edison, whatever, Westinghouse. Well, electricity was already there. It wasn't
Hmm.
like they created something. They just discovered it. And as such, that's what you have to keep in mind, my friends, that when you go to sleep on things, or when you lay down and meditate on something, you are letting your mind drift out to where that critical mass of thought exists, and you're tapping into it. It's kind of
Interesting.
like Google, you know what I mean? You go into Google and you say, "Well, tell me about Antarctica," and all of a sudden this information comes up about Antarctica. Well, where did that come from?
Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
is that information? How many of us who do a Google search care about where it exists? Who put it there? Is it, we don't care. Just give me that information. So that's how it is, Les. When you sleep on something, your mind goes out, especially when you really, really need to know something. That's when you're focused. It might take a little effort. Don't try too hard, because when the heart, it's like squeezing your fist, right? Let it go. Open your hand, and it comes in your hand. If you have your hand squeezed, nothing can come
Right.
in it. But you open it up, it comes. So the long
Yeah.
and the short of that is that you can get stuff, anything. Remember this always, my friends. This is what I started my metaphysical life with, because my daughter Sherry, had issues. She was in an institution. Nobody could tell us what to do. In my mind, I always thought something could be done, but everybody said she's having convulsions. Give her medication, get on with your lives. Worst decision I made. I'm going to take that responsibility for myself. My wife was brokenhearted when Sherry went to the institution. Back in the day, it was called the home. But in any event, she was there for 4 years until this guy met Ross Peterson. And I met Ross Peterson through somebody at the Toronto Star newspaper giving me a book about Edgar Cayce. It's called There Is a River. And I read that, and then now I had hope. Now there's got to be somebody like Edgar Cayce. And one day, went upstairs, turned on the TV without any effort, thinking other I was robotically doing, and there on the program was the great famous intuitive Peterson from Flint, Michigan. And right away, we've got to see this man. And not too long later, guess what? Sherry came home, because he told us in that moment of meditation all the things that were wrong, but in specifically that her neck was, the bones in her neck were putting pressure on the brainstem. That's why she was
Oh,
having
wow.
convulsions. So
Wow.
brought her home, met Don Vigiani, a famous chiropractor. One session, and no more convulsions.
Wow.
Many- Yeah. So how many times does that happen? Is that a random chance? No, I've helped many people along the way with children like that, as you have in your therapy, Les. And so everybody finds, if you know, well, you don't know, but if you expect to find a solution, there is an alternative. It just takes a while to find it, but it's
Right.
already there.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's called faith. You have to believe that the solution is already there, the answer is already there. And how you get it? Well, rein in that monkey mind. Get that
Hmm.
elephant mind, keep going, non-stop, unafraid, and you'll get that answer. Somewhere out there,
Hmm.
there's an answer to every question. There's an answer to every disease that we call incurable.
Hmm.
What it should be, you say, is we have a disease that we haven't yet found the remedy for. That's the right answer. It's not incurable. Remember, words have power, my friend. It's not incurable because how many, thus, you're a medical guy. How many times have you heard, oh, look, a new discovery. Some incurable disease has been obliterated. It's fixed. Well, if it's incurable, how could you find a remedy for it?
Mm. All
Right?
right. Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, after a short break, we will be back with news and views, and I will share my story of Qasim Hafiz. He was a jihadist who became a Zionist.
I
Pretty
can't
interesting
wait.
story.
Wow, I can't wait to hear that. We're right back.
Are you searching for clarity, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the spiritual world around you? Meet Douglas James Cottrell, PhD, a visionary author and teacher who's helped countless people transform their lives. His books are a gateway to profound insights, offering guidance, inspiration, and the tools you need to unlock your full potential. From unlocking your intuition to discovering spiritual truths, Douglas's books are your trusted companions on the path to personal growth. Don't wait. Start your journey today. Visit his website douglasjamescottrell.com to explore and purchase his life-changing work. Your next breakthrough is just a page away.
Well, to share
Welcome
my
back,
story.
everyone. It's great. We have that wonderful story coming back from Les about some amazing place. Tell me all about it. I mean, apparently it was a really one of those hush hush, everybody knew about it kind of amazing get-togethers. What happened? What was it like last night?
Well, a friend of mine, she's her name is Shoshana, and she's a singer. Anyway, she's an active in her faith. And she sent me, she said, would you like to see, because she knows I keep track of world news and things like that. And she said, I have this friend of mine, his name is Qasim Hafiz. He was originally from Pakistan. He now lives here in the United States. And he was at one time a jihadist, a terrorist. And he converted to Zionism. I said, how? She said, well, if you want to find out, show up at his lecture. I said, I'd love to. So I brought a couple of friends with me, and we sat there. And I was amazed at the amount. I didn't expect it. There was a lot of security there. They were expecting a lot of trouble. And we did have about 20 protesters who showed up. They were peaceful, but they were making their message known. And, hey, there's free speech, so let them go. But Qasim was a very unusual man. He was raised in Pakistan, and his story goes something like this. He was brought into the Islamic faith. He was very radicalized. And he was very active in being anti-Zionist until one day somebody gave him a book that was written, I think, by Alan Dershowitz called A Case for Israel. So he read it. And he said, this is great. I'm going to just prove that Zionism is wrong and we're on the right. And I'll prove it through this book. And he said, I sat down and read the book. And he was like, this is interesting. It made him start thinking in a different way. He said, well, the only way I can prove this, I have to go to Israel. Because, this could all be lies. So I have to prove it to myself in all good conscience. I'm going to go to Israel. And he brought in a lot of humor into it as well. God bless him. And he said, they at the time, he was now living in England. And he said they tell him, when you're traveling to Israel, they have heightened security. So when you encounter security, please be honest.
Yeah.
So he got there, and he said, I was honest with security. They said, well, why are you here? And he said, I'm here to inspect your country to make sure that, to prove myself right. He said, well, that ended up with about an 8-hour stay with security.
Finding all about the country and how safe it is.
But he was there for quite a while, and he realized that he said, we were lied to. And he said, they're nothing like that they were presented to be. He said, what have I been doing with my life? He said, this is what's going on. So he had more questions. You can tell he was a very intelligent man. A little strange listening to a man who looked very Middle Eastern with a British accent. I didn't expect that. Beautiful British accent. Yeah. He's now residing in the United States, by the way. So he went back to his family. He also went back to Pakistan, and he said, listen, we're wrong, but there's something going on here. We've been lied to. And they wouldn't hear none of it. He said, well, if you don't believe me, go to Israel yourself. Prove me wrong. He said, there's a lot of miscommunication here. I'm not sure what's happening. He said, the long and short of it was, he said, I was disowned by my family. He said, but I became really interested in, truth and justice. And he said, this is wrong. He said, these people were not the evil, horrible people that we were taught to be, to hate. And he said, and now my mission, he said, he's in the media now, and he said, my mission is to just educate people and say, go there, listen, encounter the people yourself, see it for yourself. Don't believe the media either. He said, I don't care what side of the media you're on, left or right. He said, go there yourself and educate yourself. And there is, a matter of fact, he belongs to a situation now, a business where they actually pay for your plane ticket to go there. They'll actually pay for your trip so you can see for yourself. So he was a very interesting man to speak with, but it was a shame how he was just totally written off by his entire family. He paid a very high price. I was just like, he was mentioning his father was one of the co-founders of Hamas. He was going to be he was the crown prince, and now he's living here in the United States, and he was also brainwashed by his people. And he said, I was wrong. And so he's been totally disowned. He's trying to spread the message. We can all get along. It's just who is spreading the disinformation? Who is spreading the lies? He said, because we're all the same people. He said, we all bleed red. We all have a right to be here. But he said, there's so much. He said, the trouble is there's so much misinformation out there. People they're just jumping the gun and learning how to hate. And he said, there's really no reason for it. When you understand the truth will set you free. So it was a very interesting, beautiful experience. But he discussed some, disturbing trends that are still out there. But he said this is nothing new. This has been going on for centuries and centuries. He said, I'm doubtful if we'll ever get rid of it, because every generation has a challenge with it.
How old a man is he?
He's in his 40s. He's about 42 right now. Very well spoken, very well educated. But he started in Pakistan. He moved to the British Isles. He said the funny thing about being in Britain, he said, you move there, and he said you never feel as if you're a British person. He said, because my grandfather, he said, worked for a British company for his entire life, and he never spoke any English. He said, we never assimilated. And he said, I'm not sure why. He said, I think it was both ends. He said, it was partly my culture and partly the European culture. He said, because the European culture, we didn't really feel like we fit in. He said, so then he said, I wanted to experience more Western civilization. So I went to Canada. And then he said, and then I finally came to the United States. And he said, the United States is a very unique country. He said, because you truly feel you are an American. You're welcomed in. You want to assimilate into he said, we can maintain our own culture if we want, but you become an American and you become proud of being here. And he said, that's a very unique thing in the world. He said, for any of those out there who he said have been well traveled, he said, you're not going to find that anywhere except in the United States. So the man was really eye-opening.
That makes pretty good sense, because what is America? A land of immigrants.
Yeah.
So naturally, what's one more?
Right.
So it's interesting that, I suspect that the reason he's an advocate now later in life is because he was such a, what would you call it? A gung-ho kind of young man, fed the lies. I often wondered back in the day when, there were those suicide bombers. And it was like, why would somebody perfectly healthy leave their family from different parts of the world, go and live in a cave, no inside plumbing, if you know what I mean, and they would let themselves be radicalized, conned in, or perhaps persuaded to the nth degree that they should go and kill other people in the name of God. Well, I never accepted that. There must have been some other reason. Maybe they were being blackmailed. And maybe they were just told, well, you got the backpack, but the guy beside you is going to be the one that's going to blow himself up. So you just take this down with him, and then when the person gets close by remote control, they get blown up. I mean, people who send people off to, commit suicide to be a weapon, they got to be monstrous themselves. I mean, I just learned this recently about during the Second World War, the Japanese banzai pilots, the suicide pilots that would fly their planes into, their bomb-loaded planes into ships. That program didn't last too long. It was a total disaster, pardon the pun. I'm sure there would be people who would chicken out, like, gee whiz, Mr. Emperor, I was there going towards the ship, but something happened. The canopy flew off and I, fell out of the plane. I'm making that up, and that's probably, I don't mean to disrespect anybody who paid that ultimate price because they sincerely thought they were making some effort to the war. But common sense is that's not one way to win a war. Matter of fact, nobody wins a war. Everybody loses. If you look what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, the reason President Putin is out talking and being friends with the North Korean president and the president of China and the president of India, they had a big Axis meeting, and watch out, everybody. The world is being divided up. They're going one way, and North America is all on its own, except with our allies in what's called the Western world. So why is Putin out catering to other people? Because he needs to. Russia is losing the war, or was losing the war. This little country, Ukraine, is beating off the big bad Russian bear. And now, just my mind's going here, that now Putin is going about soliciting friendships with other strong men, as they call themselves in the world, so they can divide the world up themselves. But Putin started this, and war is not the way to prosper. Nobody wins in war, as they say. Only after the fact, everybody says that. We should never have this war. It's never started. Okay, so back in the day when this young man that you're talking about was lined up to be a terrorist, what was in his mind? What did they tell him to put such hate into his mind that he would be a terrorist? I hope he didn't do anything really bad, but this advocate is somebody who's been the perpetrator. So here he is, the terrorist now becoming the peacemaker. Pendulum swings back and forth. This is karma. So when you saw him, I'm going to get back to the point. He obviously was an impassioned man. He's estranged from his family. He's trying to spread the word. And last night, the security forces were out in force. Were they protecting him, or were they protecting the crowd from each other?
Both. Well, they had outside security and interior security that were constantly pacing the aisles, looking at it. It was a little unnerving. I'm thinking, why are they? He was like, boy, and he said, no, he said we have to take these precautions. He said because we've had trouble before. But he got his information from his family, and of course, who's not going to respect your grandfather or your grandmother when they constantly tell you this stuff? Like me, young man. So he said, I didn't question it until I read that book by Alan Dershowitz saying a case for Israel. He wasn't saying, I tell you, like a typical person who teaches law, which Alan Dershowitz does. He said, this is the case. This is the evidence. Make up your own mind. And he said, that's what really got him, was like, he's allowing me to think for myself and make up my own mind, which then enticed him to go to Israel and say, let me really see this for myself. And he came back going, wow, I'm a changed man. Wow. I've got to tell and he wanted to liberate his family, saying, why harbor all this hate in your heart? He said, it's toxic.
Well, I'm glad you had that experience. And again, you're absolutely right, Les. I mean, hate gets passed down, Hate is learned. Of course, if you're in a real bad situation where your house is being blown up and your relatives are being destroyed or murdered or whatever, that's firsthand. That's traumatic. That's really hard to get past. But it's a spiritual lesson. And to all of us who understand that war doesn't profit anybody, and for those who are eager and ready to go to war, you are foolish. Yeah. I understand that. There's that warrior mentality. Part of us in human reigns, we have that part of us that are warriors, and they have to go and experience that thing. Whether it's on the football field or the battlefield, they're still at war, and they experience those, I'm going to say, those dynamics. But again, hate is hate is hate. And somehow he broke away from the chain. I don't know the man. I don't know anything about him. I'm just relying on your experience. And to go there, Les, you're pretty brave. I mean, you walked into the lion's den there. Did they give you the wand or pat you down? Or
I didn't expect this security. It was a little unnerving. I'm looking at my friends going, we really want to be here. We're expecting some kind of bomber to show up. But it was like, oh, we're here. Let's do it. Let's see what's going on. And because our curiosity got the better of us. I wanted to know what was in this man's mind. I thought, what happened to him? I have just an open mind and open heart. I want to see. I always want to hear both sides because
Of
there's always
course.
some truth in everything. There's nobody's absolutely totally right. And but he was a fascinating guest, and his calling is to just try to help people learn the truth. He said, nobody's perfect. He said, I'm not saying that there's perfection in anybody. We're all in process. We're all in progress in some way, shape, or form. But he said, at least have an open mind and hear the other side. I see a lot of times, Doug, if you go to some of these media sites that everybody's familiar with, I won't name any one particular, but you'll see these little vignettes or these little videos that last about maybe 30 seconds, and you'll see something dastardly happening to somebody else. And then you look at the comments, and some of the comments are, yeah, kill him. What is he doing? And he needs a punch in the face. And then you see the more intelligent ones going, well, what exactly is happening here? Because I'm only seeing about 15% of the video, 15 seconds of the video. What actually caused this to happen? No comment. No, it's like, so they want to get you and incite you and get out there and kill and join them up. No, 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 no. And that's what happened with this man. He was like, no, no, no. Let me hang back before I hurt anybody. Obviously, the man had a kind heart. And he, at the time, he thought he was doing the right thing by hating the Zionists. He said, this is what I have to do to honor my family. But he realized it wasn't the way. And he paid a very, very high price for that. I mean, imagine losing your entire family. I mean, they just shun you. You're now dead to them. And he was willing to pay that price.
Well, I can think that he's in good company with a lot of people in the past who did the same thing. No matter what religious point of view they were in the past, there were always the leaders who usually ended up being shunned by their family and shunned by their friends, betrayed by their friends. And we're talking about some pretty serious spiritual leaders. They all have that. I guess it's the path. That's how it's done. But I don't know them. I don't know the man. I just was curious about your experience last night. I don't necessarily like to put myself in harm's way, but you went there and you found out a lot about this person, and it's a very good lesson you put forward to everybody. Like if you're listening to the news, you have two ears and one mouth. So listen to both sides, but don't use your mouth faster than you can use your hearing or your ears. And I'll tell you, I am a big advocate for these news videos and the things that come on social media. There should be somewhere on there a little flag of the country of origin that these messages started from. Because there are people in faraway places, it's their job. It's called propaganda. And they're there to get everybody fighting because they win. You're not paying attention when you're fighting. So anyway, that's a lesson on that one. And I think, for a man who wants to preach love and now make up for perhaps the shortcomings of his early life, sounds like he's on the spiritual path.
Yeah, it's interesting. I came across this little humorous statement done by this person who was studying theology. And this ties in with fear and misunderstanding and miscommunication. And he goes on to say, excuse me, back in my Christian days when I was studying theology, I was reading some commentary on the Old Testament angelic experiences. And one of the best moments I had in my studies was when I learned that the angelic greeting of "Be not afraid" in the original language, context, and storytelling style pretty much translated into the angel saying, "Please stop screaming, it's fine." Oh my God, that was hysterical.
It must be awful noisy upstairs with everybody screaming down here now. Oh my God, help me, help me, help me. That's a good
Because
one.
I've met people who have had angelic experiences, some of my clients, and they said, what is that? And it is, but imagine these primitive people back in the day, these desert dwellers who are just living a very simple life, seeing this angelic, seeing Gabriel show up going, oh my God, stop screaming. Oh boy, it brings back the humanity of it all.
I'm up for that. So listen, we're going to take another break, I guess, but tell me, you got a poem or something that is very meaningful to you.
Yeah, it was something, there's some powerful people out there who write things down every once in a while. And this is a little bit of I call it a poem. And it goes on to above. It basically has to do with the existence of God. If you ever doubt the existence of God, and if God loves you, he said, you've heard it 1,000 times that God loves you. And you nod, yeah, he loves everybody. Saying that just becomes generic. It truly doesn't really move you. It doesn't really make you wonder. Because somewhere along the way, it lost its meaning, because privilege is invisible to those who have it. But really stop for a second and think. God is all-powerful and perfect. He can do whatever he wants when he wants. He didn't have to create the universe because he doesn't really need it. But he did. And because it is in his nature to create out of love, God has no other reason for creating than his love and goodness. Creatures came into existence when the key of love opened his hand, according to St. Thomas Aquinas. Have you ever considered the fact that you didn't have to exist? You are not a necessary part of creation. The sun doesn't need you. The galaxies don't depend upon you. Heaven would still be perfect without you. Neither you nor I are essential, and still, he put you in it. So yeah, God loves you, but listen closely. You didn't have to be. The only real reason why you are is because the eternal God outside of time looked across the ages and saw your face and said, I do not want a universe without you in it. That's it. That's the gospel before the cross. That's creation before Genesis. That's love before light ever touched the deep. God does not want a universe without you in it. Read that again. He could have made stars, seas, angels, and skipped you. But he didn't. Not because you earned it, not because you deserved it, but because he is love. Excuse me. This really gets to me. And he chose you. But no, God loves you isn't cheap. It isn't cliche. It's the most terrifying, wonderful, holy thing ever spoken. You are here for a reason. You have a purpose. Make it count. If being chosen by God to exist isn't the biggest example of love, then I don't know what is. God loves you, and do not let yourself ever think otherwise. I'm sorry, it just gets me.
Hear, hear. We'll be right back after a short break.
Are you searching for clarity, guidance, and peace of mind? For nearly 50 years, Douglas James Cottrell has used his intuitive abilities to help people from all walks of life overcome challenges and make informed choices. During his clairvoyant consultations, Douglas helps you uncover the root causes of life's challenges, whether in relationships, health, or finances. He offers insights into your future and practical guidance to empower your decisions today. Available by phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime, Douglas's consultations fit your schedule and lifestyle. Heal, evolve, be the person you were born to be. Book your clairvoyant consultation today with Dr. Douglas James Cottrell.
Welcome back, everyone. It's great to have you here on the Soul Report Live. We're going to get to your questions here on the chat when the wizard starts popping them up here. We're here. What are your comments tonight? I hope you liked the show. I hope you liked that amazing poem that Les just read. Very, very wonderfully written. Remember, you're here for a purpose, always. It's a very meaningful statement indeed. So let us know what you think. Pop in and send us something in the chat, and we'll get to your question. We have a little bit longer in the show. I know, Les, you wanted to get to either Antarctica, or we're going to talk about that impressionist, that amazing fellow in, where was it again? France.
Well, there's a lot of going on down in Antarctica. Matter of fact, some years ago, John Kerry, he said parts of it were off limit for the next 35 years. And
Why?
in Antarctica, only scientists can go down there. Matter of fact, one of my clients, she tried to go down years ago. You could go go down with a scientific expedition and join them. You couldn't really take part in too much of the scientific experimentation, but you could actually join them on the trip, and you can't do that anymore. At certain parts of it, anyway. They're finding very large structures, very large pyramids down there. They're actually legit. We don't know who built them. I mean, they're very, very ancient. They're much larger than the ones found in Egypt. And there was a person, I saw their interview and she was a private investigator, and she was talking to this man who had been previously working for the Air Force. He was now retired, but he told an interesting story where they had a downed ship that they had to go rescue the guys from. And of course, in Antarctica, the temperatures are very unforgiving. So he was tasked with going to get them with his crew. And he said, well, we'll get there in about maybe an hour's time if we're able to fly directly over the pole. And the officers said, you can't do that. And they said, why not? He said, it's just off limits. He said, well, if I have to go around the pole, the guys are going to die. And so he said, no, you disobey orders, you'll be court-martialed. So he's like, okay, I'll get up in the air. And he said, to hell with it, I'm going to go. And he told his crew, this is what we're going to do, but we got to save our men. We got to save these guys. And they flew across the South Pole, and they saw this opening in the South Pole, and they didn't know what it was. They said, what is that thing? It was an enormous, like a hole. And they're going, what are we flying over? What is going on down there? So all these questions are popping up now. What is your take on that, Doug? What's happening down there?
Well, people I know we've had on the show, on the Global Village radio show on Blog Talk, we had some pretty amazing researchers and people that were in depth about this. I mean, it just doesn't go away. Scientists detect mysterious radio waves coming from beneath Antarctica's ice. Well, since Antarctica's ice cap is melting like there's no tomorrow, we're going to find out. We're going to find out what's there.
Ooh.
Because on the Piri Reis maps that were discovered in the 1500s, which were copies of maps that existed before, the entire globe, the continents on the globe, were depicted on the Piri Reis maps. Very famous story about those maps depicting the continents. And guess what? Antarctica was properly depicted on the map. And only, I think it was in the late 50s when American engineers went down and started by sonar mapping out the continent. Oh my God, it was exactly the same as it appeared on the Piri Reis maps.
Oh, wow.
So that means, there had to be a living, thriving continent where people were able to see the shoreline, the continent outline, and maybe it wasn't at the South Pole. Maybe it was in, the middle part, like where, let's say, Australia would be. And so this place was a thriving community, but it was depicted on the Piri Reis maps. And so now there's mysterious radio waves coming out. Scientists working with the ANITA experiment, high altitude balloons equipped with to detect cosmic particles, have captured unexplained radio signals seeming to emanate from deep beneath Antarctica's icy surface. Well, we're going to find out.
Wow.
We're going to find out. There's a pyramid-shaped mountain there in the remote Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica. It's symmetrical, and it's a pyramid-like peak, often mistaken for an ancient artifact, or, get this, an alien structure. Conspiracy theories abound, but no geologists affirm that it's simply a natural nanoduck or whatever, a rock protruding through glacial ice. Well, we're going to find out.
Question is, will they tell us?
Recent scientific discovery revealed that ancient deep submarine valleys buried beneath Antarctica's ice sheets. Well, as they melt away, we're going to find out. These hidden caverns, or channels, I should say, guide ocean currents and play a vital role in the ice stability and global sea level rise, unseen forces shaping the future of our planet. Well, as we know, there have been glaciers breaking off the size of Manhattan, floating around as hazards in the South Pacific and in the Arctic Ocean, I guess, I believe that's what it's called. So as the glaciers, which are millions of years old, thousands of years old, millennia, they're melting away. Just a little mischievous thought came to my mind as those sheets of icebergs melt into the ocean. I wonder if there's going to be some frozen animals, creatures, or something that's been frozen in ice in Antarctica that's going to be thawed out and will come back to life. So we're going to have like, I don't know, two-headed snakes and stuff. Like we're going to see the return of sea monsters, maybe those movies about Godzilla and there's other monsters that live in the sea. Oh my God. So, there's by the way to everybody, there was a chapel, it's called Chapel of the Snows in McMundo Station, a small interfaith church built in 1956. It was from scrap that was around there. That's another thing. There's no garbage dump in Antarctica,
Mm.
and the scientists leave their stuff there. They don't bring it home because it costs so much. So they have all this wonderful garbage dump that they can build churches. And this place apparently is a very beautiful place. Was rebuilt in 1989. It has stained glass windows, and I think it's a spiritual beacon. It's one of the most remote places in the world. So we're going to find out. So what are we talking about here? What's the point? Well, back in the day when we had these conspiracy theorists on, they were talking about um, who was the explorer that was there? Sergeant? No, I was going
Oh,
to say
Byrd, Admiral Byrd.
Admiral Byrd. There we go. I was going to say Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, but anyway, uh, that's dating myself. So there were people convinced that there was this access, this egress, if you will, or into the planet, and that the Earth was hollowed out. There's still people that believe that to this
Mm.
day. And
Yeah, he
so,
did mention in his notes something about the temperature differentiation was really acute. It was very strange how things got warm, but there's a lot of controversy around that as far as they even had theories that the Nazis had put a base down there, and they ran into the Nazis, and it's like, wow. I mean, how can you prove it? But I'm just curious, why would John Kerry say it's off limits for like the next 35 years? I mean, because it's a military base now.
yes and no. If you're asking me intuitively, I can see people running around in not white outfits, but dark outfits. And I suspect there's been this gigantic mining project going on.
Uh,
And remember, the snow's going away, so if you have a hole in the ice and the sun comes out, the hole in the ice, exaggerates, right? And
mm,
I think that's what's happening. There's probably a big run on for essential minerals. With
oh,
the
right.
wars being fought over in Ukraine and other places. I think that's probably what's going on. But I see faces. They don't look human. They look ugly.
Oh,
So it's either people wearing masks or outfits or facial gear. But there's lots of them. They're all in dark suits and they're running around. So I'm going to
oh,
say,
wow.
uh, you know, this this rush to Antarctica. I think it's coming to my mind. Just a minute. Elon Musk has an expedition.
To build an army of robots to take over the planet.
That's exactly what they are. Way to go, Les. They're
We're to be
dark outfits.
enslaved.
They have funny faces. They're robots.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Well, thank you, Les, for solving that mystery. Wow.
I picked it up from the ethers.
You apparently can pick up a lot of things on the ethers. It's all 3D too.
Yeah, I just might get a visit from the Men in Black tonight. Anyway, so we're going to go on to our friend. His name was Claude Monet, and he was a French. He was, of course, most people recognize him as the creator of Impressionism. But the funny thing is, he was born in November 1840 in Paris. When he was doing Impressionism, he was doing, in his opinion, he was doing modern art. That was it. He was considered a modern artist. He did not call it Impressionism, but somebody describing his work, it's called it. You get the impression of what he's doing, and that's where they grabbed it. But he was a very interesting man. I remember there was one comment where he was painting with other artists, and another artist said, "Can I borrow your black?" And he said, "I don't use black," because he knew that even in shadows had light. Very interesting man. What was going through? What do you think was going through his mind when he was creating this impression of what he saw around him?
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about the idea that people are very talented, have this ability to see beyond the physical world. They see into the unseen or the great beyond. And
Mm.
I'm looking at his picture and I'm looking at some of his artwork, and you can see he's trying to paint his feelings.
Oh.
So I think he was very clairsentient, and he's most well known for his series of serene water lilies and paintings.
Mm.
So he was meditating. He was in between worlds. He
Oh.
was able to see beyond the veil, as they say. And so, he's got some of the Impressionist sunrise in 1872, Woman with a Parasol, Madam, is 1875.
Mm.
The Artist's Garden at Givenery, 1900.
Yeah.
The Water Lily Pond, 1899. Garden at Saint Adair, Adressy, I should say, 1867. The Beach at Sante Adressy, 1867. And these are like, you look at them back
Mm.
and you can see that they're, regular pictures that you would look at. But if you look at them closer, you can see he's got foreground, midground, and he has the sky and uh, the foreground meeting, but not as a horizontal line, not like as some people would say that
Mm.
you have to, you have that in this ship, in this one with the ships in the back, they're on the horizon. That's how normally people, but look at what's in the foreground. Your eyes don't go to the background, it goes to the forefront where there's a vivid color and there's life, and you can imagine the people talking. And then in the faraway distance, there's like these ships, and there's different kinds too, steamships, sailing ships, small ships. So there's this array of vessels. Back in the day, that's how everybody got around. But look at the vital pictures, the colors are just vibrant and they're jumping off the screen.
Mm. Mm.
So he's feeling this, and even his use of shadows makes you like you're right there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He knew that shadows had light, so he said, "I don't use black." He was fascinating man. I mean, the poor thing. He ended up with cataracts, I believe, later on in his life. But it was fascinating to see what he did with that. If you've ever, I haven't been, but friends of mine have been to Giverny, where he had that garden. He created it's a tributary off the Seine River, and he created this beautiful garden with the water lilies. That's where he did most of his painting later on in life. He created a houseboat where he would actually go out, row out in the boat, and paint from the boat itself. Very prolific artist. But he
Beautiful
could
paint.
not. He didn't understand why he was so popular, because there were other impressionists that painted like him, but he considered them better than him. And he said, I could never understand why I became so popular. He said, I'm just a big bear of a guy. Why do you think was it in his karma to become popular? Had he been popular in another lifetime?
No, he was a master, but he was humble, and he
Oh.
knew um, to speak of others pleasingly was good politics. And if you look at those eyes, you can see wisdom in the way he looks. He's a humble man, but like all masters, what comes to my mind now is that he did things easily. And so what he thought, nonchalantly, doing there's a lot of calmness, and you just look at those paintings and you calm down. That was the secret of his artistry. Other
Hmm.
people wouldn't do it. I mean, people can take 1,000 photographs, but one will stand out because it's extra special. And I think that to answer your question, what comes to my mind as we're watching is that he was a master. He was very humble, and he couldn't figure out why people thought he was, the best, because it came easy to him.
Oh.
He was a master,
Oh,
and
wow.
it came easy to him.
Hmm.
And like all masters, like all geniuses, yeah, what's the big deal? Well, you are the big deal. Nobody can do what you're doing. Yeah, but I just do it so easy. There I was having a croissant and a little, you know, whatever, a cup of coffee or tea, and I had this vision. Well, that's what he's painting is a vision because he feels it. I once talked to what pops in my mind just now. I once talked to an artist um, well never mind where he was, and he came to me one day and we were talking about his investments, and I was curious because he was a very well known artist. He used to work with metal, and he would make figurines, and he was very well known in faraway places. But in particular, people who were going to be given an award or something by the local city would come to him and they would say, "We'd like to commission you to do a work for somebody."
Hmm.
And I went, "Okay." Now his was all black metal. They were figurines. They would look like African warriors. They would look like dancers. They would look um, like humanoids, but they would be nondescript. But they were beautiful, and they were tall, and they had legs and arms, and were very beautiful. So I said to him, "So, okay, I know who I am, the psychic guy, and I know who you are, this artist." And I said, "So how do you do it?" And he could see that I was penetrating into his train of thought when he was trying to create. So he confessed up. He said, "Well, I take a piece of metal and I put it in my hand, and I look at it, and I look at it, and then I ask it, what do you want to become?"
Wow.
I never forgot those words.
Wow.
And in his mind,
That's
he
cool.
would see an image. And so, like Michelangelo, who once said that all those figurines always existed in the block of marble, all he
Yeah.
had to do was to chip away the excess and expose the figure.
Yeah.
Interesting concept. And that's what this man did. Uh, he didn't offer me one. No, he didn't give me one. And no, I didn't buy one because they were expensive. But I did get to hold them in my hand. And Helena de Sloggy, the Countess of Transylvania, real, was a very
Wow.
famous artist. She sold her paintings for 10,000 or more, at
Mm.
10,000 up. And she told me once that she would be visiting in other dimensions,
Wow.
traveling through them, and she would paint them.
Oh, cool.
She saw beings in there that were like smoke, hooded beings like smoke. And she used to enjoy blasting through them until she realized that she was destroying them. That
Oh.
was in her dimension, they were smoke.
Oh.
And so now it scared the heck out of us. My wife and I were in our house and we saw little faces bopping around in our living room. Did you see that? Yeah, did you? We gotta get out of here. But she's a very famous lady. I loved her. She was a very talented lady.
Hmm.
I'd like to know if anybody's listening, how we could ever get in contact with her family or find out where her paintings were. But anyway, that's getting back to the point that I think you've solved it. We're going to go on record and say you saw, well, I saw, and you interpreted robots. Robots are now actively engaged in something, mining perhaps, carrying boxes or packs. When you said the more clear they become, because
Hmm.
they were running around and walking strange, but they looked humanoid, but they couldn't see their faces looked different. So we're
Wow.
going to say, yeah, we're going to start. Don't tell anybody, but Les and Doug say that there's robots, aka Elon Musk buddies, pals, whatever. I don't know. uh, I shouldn't say that, I should say property, that are mining the South Pole.
Wow. Well,
Okay.
makes sense. I mean, if the robots can do dangerous work and save men's lives, why not, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
they don't
mining can
worry.
be,
You
yeah,
don't need to
mining.
vac. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You
Yeah.
don't need to vaccinate them. You just need, you just need to oil them, apparently. Remember the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man?
Oil can. That's and
What's
we got some questions from our YouTube listeners from This Too Shall Pass. In 2023, Blog Talk Radio, a caller said that he had a vision that in 2026 would be the end of seeds, seeds. Could that mean stores would only sell seedless watermelon, grapes, etc.? Every fruit would be seedless? What do you think, Doug?
I think it means that we ought to stock up with vegetable seeds. You might be right about the fruit being hybrid because we're now getting away from agricultural normal means and we're getting the high tech, this, that, and the other thing. There's aggregate stuff. There's a big white bowl on the bottom, a plastic ABS pipe, and plants in holes on either side, and water being circulated. So they're basically uh, plants without soil, and they're doing quite well. They're leafy vegetables, etc., and fruits and things like that. But I think he could be right. I mean, we have many types of foods now that seed takes up a lot of energy, but it's been predicted by myself and others, Casey, that there will come a time in which gold and silver will be valuable, precious stones, semi-precious stones, and seeds,
Oh,
SEEDS. And so
really?
that's why you mentioned about your friends and neighbors getting interested in agriculture and backyard gardening.
Mm.
Yeah, well, it's because the price of vegetables and fruits, as we predicted before, we've said, eggs was going up. We predicted that a few months ahead of time. Eventually, it'll be difficult to get food. Well, the way the present administration is dealing with these things about putting tariffs on products, and the farmers they were on the news recently. They had a really bad year last year, and now they're having another really bad year, and they can't get labor. They're in weather difficulties. The world's on fire. Anyway, not to go down that track too much, but to say that now's the time to go to Costco or wherever you go, and you can get buckets of seeds. Those little packages. They stay good forever, and you can trade them off. You can use them for money. However, as to our friend and a point, I don't quite think it means that there's going to be no seeds because then there'd be no proliferation of the fruits and vegetables.
Mm.
Did you know there's
Yeah,
only one kind of banana in the world?
I
There's
tell
big
you, right?
research on trying to grow a second and even a third string of bananas, but all the bananas you eat come from the same banana source, if you will, the same variety. So I
Yeah, you're
understand
right.
they're trying to get more varieties. That was a few years ago that was given to me, but it could be the same way. So to our person asking the question, it's a really good question. It's an eye opener. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. I think it's more along the lines of actually having real seeds in your own jar, container, metal container. Remember, metal containers, mouses can't get in them, and they don't rot. Glass containers have humidity in, so remember to put your seeds in the seed packets, but also put them in Ziploc bags so there's no moisture. And there was something else about that was just popped in my mind about seeds. Oh yeah, Norway. Did you know that Norway has the world's largest depository, or not surprised, bank of deposits of seeds in the world? Yes. Why? Because Norway has mountains and they have ice and they have snow, at least presently.
Mm.
So, good question, my friend out there. Thank you very much for being part of the show. We have another.
Our next, sure. Our next is from Larry Cruz. I had a powerful dream where in the dream it was sunny, then it became nighttime. Of course, more happened, but I don't recall having a dream where it was sunny, then became nighttime. What is the meaning?
Next year.
Oh,
Sunny's daytime, and this is in the Jewish religion, other religions. Tomorrow starts when the sun goes down today.
oh,
When the sun sets now, the day's over. The next day starts. And so the next day starts what? Without sun.
oh, I see. Okay.
So in the dream, when you go from sunny day, that's now, to next year, it gets dark, a new year, like a whole year away. So if you're riding a bicycle in the sun and all of a sudden you're in the nighttime and you're wondering where your bicycle was, that means next year you're not going to have a bicycle.
Oh, okay.
something like that. That's pretty elementary, Mr. Watson.
We have a nice note from a person on YouTube by the name of QM. Love listening to you and started listening to Ross because of you, Douglas. Thank you. A nice message.
Ross Peterson.
I guess it must mean Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out there. Ross Peterson was a man's man. He was an amazing, intuitive person. He was an extremely exceptional human being, just nondescript. They broke the mold when he was born. If they're talking about Ross Peterson, so thank you very much for listening to us. He was my mentor, and I'm a neophyte compared to Ross. Absolutely.
One of my listeners just texted me. I don't know why they don't text here, but anyway, she says she wants to know, am I truly free or is my path already written for me?
If you're asking me that question, what do you think? Yes, of course, you're free, unless you think you're not. Okay, so what does that mean? I think, therefore I am. Yeah, okay. What do you mean? If you're asking a question, then you must be free. Yes, otherwise you wouldn't ask the question. This gets into high, philosophical nonsense sometimes, but the point is that if you're asking a question, then you already know the answer. And if you're asking that question, then you have to be free. Otherwise, you wouldn't know to answer, to ask the question. So here's a go. Here's a quick lesson on this. I teach this in seminars. Everybody has free will and free choice. Absolutely. But what about fate? Okay? You come with a blue plan. You come with a purpose in your life. So how can you have free will and free choice and still have fate and destiny? They're both, as Robert Kennedy Jr. answered just the other day to a very difficult question, they're both right. So you have a destiny or a fate. You have a purpose to your life that you have to live. You cannot escape it because you already chose it. What's that mean? Your soul decided you want to come down and be the person you are today, or live the life that you're living today. They want to find out all about it. It didn't know about it. It sort of had an inkling or an understanding of what your life experience would be like, so it decided to experience it. Now, free will and free choice says, okay, I'm coming into the world. I have to be here. I'm going to be this body shape, the gender I am, the experiences I have as a baby, all those things, the birth order, those are things that are going to help me find my way to fulfill my destiny. Okay, but I get to choose what kind of clothes I'm going to wear. I get to choose what education I'm going to get. I'm going to choose if I want to travel or stay home. I'm going to choose if I like pizza or if I like vegan. Okay, those things are your free will and free choice. But the overview is you're here and you're who you are now. And if it's your destiny to work in a school, you will be in a school. If your destiny is to drive heavy equipment, you will drive heavy equipment. Whether it's a tank or a bulldozer, you're driving heavy equipment. Okay, not that simplistic, but to give you the idea. So free will and free choice is, okay, you're here, do what you want, but when you're 7 years old, you're going to have to break your arm. You're 14, you're going to fall in love. And when you're 23, you're going to change your vocation. You're going to do something totally different. And when you're 35, you're going to travel the world. And when you're 42, you're going to have a heart attack. And when you're 52, you're going to discover meditation and become a saintly teacher. And when you're 70, you're going to get on the Soul Report show and talk about your life and how miraculously you went through the zigzag to where you are. Okay, so what I'm saying is there are life lessons along the way that you must endure, experience. And the only way out of those things, talking about karma now, the only way out of that, of avoiding the difficult karma, is to regret, to learn a lesson, either through watching other people or being spiritually aware
Oh.
and giving up the tendencies to do violent things, then you can strip away those layers of karma by being of service. But in order to do that, you have to realize, hey, I have free will and free choice. Hey, I have to work on myself. Hey, God does not demand that I continue to be as the way I was when I was born. I can be better.
Hmm.
And therefore, you have free will and free choice, and you can usurp the great temptation of your destiny. You don't need to go through difficult things, unless, of course, you need to learn a lesson.
Hmm. The next is from my client Martha. What does it mean to live authentically in alignment with my spiritual self?
To be true to yourself.
Hmm.
You have to know yourself, and we don't get to know ourselves unless you're very attentive and looking at yourself all the time through rose colored lenses, but also understand you're a human. You have a dark side. You have a weak side. You can succumb yourself to temptation. But salvation means you overcome those weaknesses in your character. And so by loving yourself, that's the way to go, because you find out that, as my mentor once said, if you go into a dark closet and close the door, this is his exact words, you will find that in that closet, you're there all by yourself now, you will find your best friend and your worst enemy.
Wow.
Profound way that Ross Peterson explained that to me, a young man at the age of 25. So, how can you be true to yourself, understand yourself, make mistakes or errors, because errors are the stepping stones to success? Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and then learn how to forgive yourself and say, well, I wasn't so cool after all. And as you get older, I guarantee you, everyone out there, if you follow this one thing, you will have a wonderful golden age. And that one thing is live your life so much so that you don't have regret. I
Hmm.
don't think anybody I ever met had no regrets ever. There were always
No.
a few.
No.
But if you can do that, you will have a wonderful old age. So I
Hmm.
hope that's meaningful. There you go.
And our last question is from Joseph. If everything is connected, as they say it is, what responsibility do I hold towards others and the earth?
How long are your arms?
Oh boy.
From this point backwards, your fingertips, you have complete control and complete responsibility to whatever is from the end of your fingertips, the tip of your toes, if you will, the top of your head, backwards. Beyond that, you have no control. Okay. So the image I have in my head is you're in the ocean and you're swimming. So to be true to yourself, you're trying to swim to shore, you're trying to save yourself. You're not going to be worried about the whales and the salmon and the porpoises and the ships going by and the water, etc. You're going to be true to yourself and take care of yourself. The short answer, in a philosophical way, is from your fingertips back, you have complete control. Put your arm out straight in front of you, my friend. That's it. That's the limit. How can you be true to the world? Take care of the world. Don't beat up the world. Don't take your hands and beat on things. Don't dig holes. Don't, do nasty things.
Respect
We
the
know.
earth.
I mean, I don't need to be too pointed to that, but that's the rule. Fingertips back, you have complete control. Beyond, you can only say, putting your hands together, God Almighty, I pray that there will be peace in the world. And I'll try to do everything I can to make peace in my world so that I will affect all of the world. There you go.
All right. As we close the show, do you have any closing comments, Doug, for the show tonight?
Let's see. Les, you're an amazing guy. You have an amazing life. I've known you for 30 years or more. I remember our friend Dr. Gazelle in Connecticut, Thompson, Connecticut, where his house was, and how we had some good times in Rhode Island, going to a jazz club. Our dear friend George Seferiadis, his wife let him go out with us one night that we could go to the club. I felt so sorry that she didn't come along, but it was the boys' night out.
That was
And that was Stella, who's with us now, and we send her our love and our good thoughts. So wherever we go, whatever we do, we'll always be friends. And for everyone out there, the most valuable thing you can have in your life is a friend.
Well, thank you, Doug.
Okay, my friends, it's that time where we're going to say good night and God bless, and we love you so much. Thank you for choosing the Soul Reports show tonight. We'd love to see you here at the same time next week. And this brings us to an end of this special Soul Report, and it's an end of our journey. And we go our separate ways as we look towards the world, and we try to make the world a better place. If a thought, a memory, or even a dream rises to you after the show, follow it. This is your spirit speaking to you in the way that only the soul can talk to you. It loves you. It is you. Remember, you're not just here to survive the world. You're here to transform it. One loving act, one truthful voice, and one sacred breath at a time. Please take a moment and subscribe to our show. Like it and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. We're here to help your friends and yourself along this way. You'll find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, soon to be on X and TikTok under my name, Douglas James Cottrell. Until next time, stay aware, stay kind, stay connected. Remember, we're all in the human family, and God loves us all. Okay, this has been the Soul Report Live. I'm your host, Douglas James Cottrell, with my good friend and co-host Les Hubert, and Jack, who is producing the show tonight, Jack Balick. Thank you very much, Oz. We're happy for all those pictures and helping to produce the show. See you next week, my friends. We have more exciting news coming up of where the world is going, and you're going to find your way because you're going to continue to take your steps, and we're here to support you all the way. Good night. God bless. Take care, Les. You're the best.
Thanks,
Good
Doug.
night, everybody.